Hey, Aaron Rabinowitz here. If you've ever tried to create beautiful, realistic chromatic distortions through glass like this, you may have found it challenging, but there's a secret to getting results like this, and that secret is that what you don't see is as important as what you do see. In this two-part tutorial series, I'll walk you through it. In the first part, we'll create these cool holographic materials that you can use anywhere, and in part 2, we'll cover using them as a part of our glass refraction project. Before we do anything in Cinema 4D, let's make sure that we are set up to render with Redshift. So I'm going to choose my render settings right here, and I'm going to change it from standard to Redshift. If for some reason after you do that, you don't see the Redshift menu here, then what you can do is you can go into your preferences, and within the preferences, you can select your renderer right here, twirl that down, go to Redshift, and make sure that Redshift main menu is available to you right there. With that done, you'll be able to see this Redshift menu over here. Now, I'll be working in a custom layout. That's my Redshift side-by-side. Looks just like this. But you can start from the standard layout and then just choose Redshift RS Render View. And when that pops up, you can grab hold of it and drag it right to the side. Then turn on the IPR. Okay, let's jump into it. So here I am in Cinema 4D. I've got a basic setup here. I've got a flat plane, I've got a sphere, and I've got this cylinder, and there's nothing special about them. Just made some small changes to their sizing and whatnot. And now let's grab hold of this plane in the background. I'm just going to scale that up nice and big. And I'm going to create a material for it. So let me go over to here, and I'll choose to pop in there. Just double click on it. I'm going to add in a ramp. So I'll type in ramp, and I'll drag that right here. And I'm going to connect the ramp, not to the color, but to the emission color, so that it will kind of glow. I'll be able to light the background independently just by giving it some of its own bright color. So going into the ramp here, I'm going to change this from vertical, right? I'm going to change that over to circular, and I'm going to invert the gradient, and then I'm going to go into the full material, and I'm going to raise the weight of the emission from 0 to 1. And you can see now it's glowing, it's brighter. And I'm going to drop this on the plane. So now our plane, as you can see, we've got a little bit of a gradient kind of going off. And one other thing that I want to do is just make sure that there's no reflection coming from here. So I'm going to set the reflection weight down to 0. And I could probably also just set the color down too, it doesn't really matter. It should darken things a little bit, but mostly it's going to give us that bright center with the dark edges. So now there's nothing but the emission color coming out of it. Perfect. Next I want to add in some lighting. Right now we're just using the default lights, so I'm going to just click on this and add in a dome light. And I don't just want to use the light as it is, like we're getting 360-degree lighting, which creates no shadows. It's cool for like a clay render, but it's not great for like looking at things and how they react to light. So I'm going to add an HDRI image. And what I can do is I can click right here on the Asset Browser button. And I've already done a search for HDRIs, but here, let me show you. I've created my own browser view like this. And you can see that there's, if you go over to Media, there's an HDRI folder. And I'm just going to grab this one right here. And what I'll do is, with my dome light selected, I'm going to drag this right into Texture. And that will change the lighting because this image is there. If we kind of rotate around, we'll see that there's an image that's now being used to light the scene. And what I want to do is grab hold of this dome light and just rotate the environment a bit until I get something that I feel like looks more like what I want. In this case, I want the bright, cool lights coming down this way. And I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, now we're going to do a little material building. So I'll add in another material. I'm going to apply it to the sphere and to the cylinder. And I'm going to double click the material to get in there. And we're going to choose to add in a ramp. And this time we're going to do something a little more colorful. And I'm going to add this to the reflection color. So let me select this, choose Base Properties Reflection. I'll choose Color. I'm going to go into that ramp. And coming down over here, I'm going to load a preset. And that preset will be, let's try this basic heat map right here. And let's just get rid of that. Right click and choose Distribute Knots. Make this a slightly different color. A little more towards there. That's good. And now, jumping into the materials reflection settings, I'm going to set the index of refraction quite low. You can see that now the colors are showing up there. The problem is that like it's on a gradient, which I don't really want in terms of like a linear gradient. there are other options, but to get the look I want, which is colors that kind of move from the outside to the inside, there's a little bit of a hack we have to do here. We need to tell this ramp to behave as if there's a gradient driving its positioning of the colors. It's a little hard to explain, so let me show you. I'm going to choose Fresnel, which is a really useful effect generally used in refraction, but it's also really useful if you want the polygons facing away from the camera to be one color and the polygons facing the camera to be a different color. And we're going to apply this right here. We're going to use this for the gradient. We're going to go with General Input, Alternate Input. And if you look here, you can see that we're getting green edges. I need to tighten this up quite a bit. So let me try turning off Use Index of Refraction. And I'm just going to lower the curve fall off, maybe even to like 0.5. Yeah, we're definitely getting something that looks better. And if I look at my materials now, if I look at what's happening here, we can see that we've got sort of this red on the edge, and the colors go in. So what I want to do is just make some adjustments to this gradient a little bit. I want to push this in a little more, push that in, just like that. Let's see how that works. If we look back over here, that's looking better. I think that we need to dull the colors a little bit. And I could just dull each of these colors, but a fast version is, let's get a color correction. And I'm going to plug this into color and plug this into inputs. And then with the color correction selected, let's do this. Let's lower the saturation scale a little bit, maybe a little more. Okay, so we're getting colors that come in from the side. Let's just take a look here. Like this, you can see that there's colors on the edges. And I may want to crank that color back up a little bit, but for now this is working for me. Let's make a few more changes to this. Let me spread these out just a little bit. Okay, I want to give it some noise for how it reflects things. So let me choose Noise, and from there I'll choose Max on Noise. And I'll drop that in. And I'm going to put it on the reflection roughness, which kind of roughens up. You see what it's doing here, it's roughened up the material so that some areas reflect more than others. That's a little intense. So for the roughness, I want to make a couple of changes. Selecting this right here, I'm going to go for the type of noise. I'm going to set this to gaseous, and I'm probably going to need to scale this up a little bit. So let me see if I scale it up a little like that. That's a little better. And also, another thing that I want to do is coming back to the colors. I don't want it to be all black or all white for the mask. So let me just kind of set this to a little bit gray and a little bit gray that way. And that's looking pretty good. I'd also like to add in some dents. So let me add in another noise. And this will be, again, Max on Noise. We're also going to need to add in a bump map. I'm just putting this over here. So we'll choose Bump. And we'll tell it it's a bump map. And this helps Cinema 4D understand that the image we're using is going to be used as a bump map to generate bumps and scratches and things like that. So I'm going to drag this into bump map right that. I'm going to drag this into the input for the texture right here. And with the Max on Noise selected, I'm going to go over to the noise, and I can try different things here, but I happen to know that dense is actually what I want. So let's go over to dense here. And you can see this creates these nice dents on it. It's a little much though. So what I want to also do is select the bump map here, and I want to change the height scale down to, I don't know, something like maybe 0.5. Let's see what that looks like. It's maybe even too much. We can set it to 0.2. Yeah. So now we're getting a material that feels a little imperfect, but also has this nice color in it. And, you know, I may want to just play with some of the intensity of the colors again, come back here, maybe even to the original ramp, and just bring this a little more blue like that, and maybe even add in like an orange. Even though there's one there already, I can make a little bit more of an intense orange. And I think I like that, and I'm just going to undull the color a little bit, setting the saturation scale up to 7 plus. Okay, that's looking really good. So I'm going to close this out and save my work. So what did we accomplish there? Well, we created a material where light and color sort of diffuse a different way along its surface. So no matter how we rotate this camera, and no matter what's being reflected back, like in the example of the fact that the white wall is reflected in the back of this object, the red, the orange, the yellow, it all goes in order from red to blue. and it doesn't matter how we rotate it. And what you will find is, though, in certain objects like that have like an end point to them, like a sphere, the color will sort of move along a little bit, but ultimately still stay with that spread from red to blue. We've created sort of a little holographic material, which is pretty cool. And it may not seem like much like this, but if we are adding a shape that's a little more irregular, let me just add in a platonic, and I'm going to also add in a Mo extrude. And drop that in there. And, I'll also drop that into a subdivision surface. So we get something really cool like this. I'll zoom in. And if I apply this material to this platonic, check out how it reacts to the light. It's really cool. And of course you can change the order of colors or remove colors if you want to. So maybe move the yellow over to here, bring the blue over there, get rid of the orange like this. And you'll see that the colors are affected. It's really cool. I think that's a really cool looking one too. Okay, now that we've created these cool holographic materials that you can use anywhere, in part 2, which is available now, we're going to use them to create this final project. Hope to see you there. Once again, I'm Aaron Rabinowitz. Thanks for watching.